Oh, hi, good evening. How are you guys? Good evening, very Bandu. Good evening, hi, Vishnu. Hi, Nohita. Good evening. So, you guys have any questions from the last session we had? So, I request you guys to just go and mark your attendance. That's good. Good evening, Ashish. Okay, so let's start today with Express.js. Okay, so before I start with Express.js, what is Express.js? Like, what is Express.js? Okay, so if I talk, like if I just summarize it, I can say it's a Node.js framework. But now the question arises, what is a framework? So if you remember, mentioned that the Node.js was an environment, Express.js is a framework. Okay, but like what is environment? What is framework? Like this is a very confusing analogy, right? So in order to understand it, think of it like a building a house. Okay, so if I say, let's say you want to build a house. Okay, so before you build the house, you will create a blueprint of this house. Okay, so this blueprint is JavaScript over here. It's the language. Okay, so JavaScript is a language. So with JavaScript, I can build the house. Okay, and let's say now you go to a specific apartments and they show you a pre-built house. Okay, like they will show you, yeah, this is the kitchen, this is how your kitchen will look like, this is how the bedroom would look like, this is how the roof would look like, this is the basic wiring. Okay, so these pre-built structures are the framework. Okay, and the place where you have built the house is the environment. Okay, so if talking about coming back to this, I'm saying that uh, the since the blueprint of the house is the language, which is JavaScript over here. Okay, so anything like if you're building the house, uh, the JavaScript is the blueprint. Like all the framework, all the structures are in the JavaScript. And when I talk about framework, so example of framework is the React.js. Okay, so even though it uses the concepts of JavaScript, but it's a way of writing the JavaScript in order to create our applications. And environment is a place where I can compile this JavaScript code, whether it's the React.js code, whether it's the vanilla JS code, anything. The environment where this JavaScript code is getting compiled is the place where this code is getting compiled is the environment. So Node.js is an environment where the JavaScript codes get compiled, and React.js is the framework. And when I'm talking about Express.js, it's also a framework. Okay, so now we know what is the framework. So why do we need this framework? So as I mentioned earlier in the last few classes, that uh, Node.js is mainly used for writing the for creating the server side code. Okay, so earlier in the first class we have learned about the HTTP module. Okay, so the problem with the HTTP module is we have to write a lot of code, and our code cannot be robust. Okay, in order to create the server. So this problem was solved by Express.js. Okay, so Express.js is a minimal and flexible Node.js web application framework. Okay, which is built on top of the Node.js HTTP module. Okay, so this is the basic of Express.js. So there are few advantages of this. Just a second. Yeah. So there are a few advantages of this, that it simplifies routing, introduces middleware, and request handling. Okay. Moreover, we there's a very large community which uses this Express.js, and there are a lot of rich plugins which are available with Express.js, which we will study in the which we will study forward basically. Okay, so if I go with the definition, Express.js is a minimal and flexible Node.js web application framework. Okay, that help us create the server or backend of web and mobile applications. Okay, is this part clear? Like this is a definition part. We'll jump back to the code. Okay, okay. So what is Express.js? As I mentioned earlier, Express.js is a web framework for Node.js that simplifies the development of web applications. Okay, so before we start, uh, we need to install the Node.js because Node Express.js is built on top of Node.js. Okay, now let's initiate our project. I'll say just open the project. Okay, I'll clear everything. Let's start from the scratch. Delete. Right, I'll increase the font size and I'll create a file, or I'll just initiate the package. No, it's not a package. Package is something else. Package is where like a application. Okay, so you can create packages with the help of this framework. Okay, so come back to the code. Let's create a project. We'll say npm init. I'll say the package name as I'll say express. Start getting express server. Okay, version 1 we keep it like this. Yes, so by doing this our package.json file has been created. Okay, now if I say I'll create another file called index.js because the point of a project is index.js. Okay, let's try it out. I'll also write a start command and let's try it out. Project has been started. If I say npm start here, started. So yeah, my project has been successfully started. I'll increase the font size. Okay, now coming back to this, just a second. Yeah, so now in order to initialize express.js, what we need to have this express. Okay, so we need to install the express.js package. So in order to install it, you can go to just a second. I'll just open the browser. Okay, just go to npm express and over here you will find this package. Just see, there are weekly around 30 million downloads. So this is just see the popularity of this package. I'll share this package with you so that the link of this package so that you can also go through it. Okay, I'll just share the link with you. Yeah, good evening everyone. Now, so so in order to use this, let's install the express first. So since this is the third party library, I have to install this. So how do I install it? If you see, it's written over here. It's npm I express. You can write I, you can write install. It's up to you. So I is a shorthand for writing the install. Okay, we can let's write in install only. Npm install express. See, it has installed the express. Wait, I'll just minimize this. Okay. Now, if you see in package.json, this there's this dependency for in dependency object, we can see Express. That means it has installed the Express in it. Okay, here are all the packages in Node modules, and the Express is installed. So how to use Express? How do I add Express to my project? So in order to add the Express, we need to import the module in it. So in order to import the module, I'll say I'll use require Express. Okay, so since I want to use this in the future, I'll just assign it to a variable. So how do I do that? I'll say const express equals to this. Okay, now once I've installed this, uh, so I've installed it, I have imported in my file, and yeah, GitHub Copilot is a paid extension. There are many other extensions which you can install, which gives you the similar results. Okay. Okay, so I have installed the Express. Okay, now we have to create an instance of this Express. So what I'll do, I'll assign this. Yeah, I can suggest some. I'll share this after the class. Okay, I have few. I've seen few of the other free GitHub Copilot alternatives. I'll share it with you. Okay, so I have to create the instance of this Express. So how do I do that? I'll say Express app Express. Okay, so okay, okay, now it's the same way how you used to create the HTTP module. Okay, it's a similar manner how we created that in the HTTP module. So what I'll do, I'll say app dot listen. I'll define the port number over here, so let's call it on 4000. Okay, and again the second parameter will be a callback function which will run if the server is initiated successfully. Okay, so I'll just say console log server server started on port 4000. Okay, let's try it out. Let's try it out whether it's working or not. So I'll say npm start. See, my server has been started. Okay, so this is how we start the server. Yeah, hi Showman. So now I have started the server, but what then? So if you have studied like somewhere else that there are multiple types of requests which we can make. Mainly they are get, post, put, and delete. Okay. So okay, so there are different types of server requests, which is get request, request, put request, and delete request. Okay, so get request, we use get request whenever we have to get the data. We use post request whenever we have to send the data. We use put request whenever we have to update the data, and delete request whenever we have to delete the data. Yeah, we have to use localhost 4000 to run this. The way we did, it's the same way the way we did it in the HTTP module. Okay, so if I show you here, if I run localhost 4000, see, okay, wait. So why nothing has happened yet? Because I haven't initiated the request over here. So Let's start with get. Okay. In order to use the get request, what I'll do, I'll say app dot get. It's the same instance app. It has the get method. Okay. And it takes two parameters. First is the URL at which you want to request. I'll keep it slash for now. And I second parameter takes is the callback function. I'll call it um, send message. Okay. Now what is the send message? We can, okay, so it can be done in a two-way. Okay, so I'll show you both the ways. So this function takes two parameters, which is request and response. Same way, same thing which we did in the HTTP module. Okay, and let's say I want to send the response back to the user. So how do we send the response back? We use response dot send, and I'll say hello world. Okay, let's try it out. I'll restart the server. Okay, let's try it out. See, I'm getting hello world now. Okay, so why am I getting hello world here now? Because I said on slash send the hello world. Okay, but what if I make a request on slash abc? It says cannot get abc. Why? Because there is no abc URL. So let's create an abc URL. I'll say slash abc, and I'll send the response as you are on abc page. Okay, if I restart the server, since we have to restart every time we run it, I'll get you are on abc page. But if I had hit localhost 4000, which is slash, then it will go on this. Okay, that means if I'm hitting on slash, I am sending back this response. If I'm clicking going on abc route, then I'm sending back this as a response. Okay, any questions? Yeah, these are the routes. Yeah, actually these are the routes. Okay. Okay, so now, as I mentioned that I have written this. So instead of writing the message over here, you can even create a functions like this. So I can write const, I'll say send message, and I'll assign this the same function which I have written over here to this, and now I will send message. Okay, now if I hit this, it's still working in the same manner. Okay, yeah, we can install Nodemon. So I was actually explaining the Express. That's why I did not go into the Nodemon. So yeah, you can also install Nodemon. So what Nodemon does is basically Nodemon tells you if there's any change in the code, or if you save any changes, if you make any changes in the code, it automatically restarts it. Okay, so this is a very common library. It's called Nodemon. I'll say npmi Nodemon. Okay, so in order to use this, what we do, I'll just, instead of writing node index.js, I'll write nodemon index.js. Okay, now every time I make any changes, it will automatically restart the server. So if I say npm start, see, it says nodemon index.js has been executed. Now let's say if I save it again, so see, it has again, it's, you can see over here, restarting due to changes, starting node index.js. Okay, so Nodemon is like Node, but whenever it detects any changes, it restarts the server by itself. Okay. Browser routes in React. Yeah, so see, routes is a very common topic. Okay, it's there in Angular, it's there in React, it's there in backend. So like in simple terms, what is route? Route is just the URL. Okay, you can see the URL wherever you see the route URL, the functionality is there, and whether it's again it's Angular, React, Node, Python, everything, every almost every language have a route instance, because if they are using the internet. Okay, while compositions or npm. Okay, so the reason why we use npm is we do npm init in the beginning is because, okay, so what npm does is basically it creates this, whenever you do npm init it creates this JSON file. Okay, the advantage of having this JSON file is our project knows what all packages are required, what all packages are not required, and which all scripts do, like we can perform, which all scripts we can run to run the package, to run the project. So all this is done by npm init, because this is the pack. Every time you do npm init it creates the package.json file, where it has few things which are required by almost every project. Okay, that is why it is very important to install the npm when you're running the project. You're welcome, Yash. We need to start server in app.js. Yeah, see, it's a different framework. Let's not discuss this over here because it will confuse the other people. Okay, it will even confuse you. Just think of it as a individual topic. Don't compare this with React, because it will confuse you for now. So okay, so okay, what happens is, why we have to install the package is, like, okay, so you have, okay, like if I'm not installing the package, I don't have these node modules. Okay, I'll delete it. I don't have this log JSON, I'll delete it. Now, if I don't, okay, now in my dependencies, it says that Express is required. Okay, so if Express is required, okay, so okay, Express is required. Now, where will it find the files for Express, or where will it find the files for Nodemon? So whenever we install the package, we say, whenever I do npm install, see what happens. All the node, all the dependencies which are required for all the files which are required for these dependencies downloads and come into node underscore module folder. So whenever I'm using this node, whenever I'm using these packages, it will automatically find its file in node modules. So if if your project does not have any external dependencies like over here, then you don't have to use the npm install. Okay, so see, package log json is like a package json. Okay, but package log json is required. So let's say, okay, I'll just get into this. So if I'm talking about dependencies over here, okay, so it says 4.19.2, and you can see this sign. Wait, this sign, what does this mean? It means that any version more than 4.19.2. Okay, so I'm basically saying that any version of Express will work, but least the smallest version should be 4.19.2 or above package will work. Okay, now let's say I'm using 4.20 in my project, in my computer. Okay, and I'm sharing my project with you. So whichever version I'm using on my computer gets saved in package-log.json. So how it works is, whenever I am installing the project, it first check whether the version which is there in package.log.json exists. If so, it will install that. If not, then it will install the download or install the newer package. So that is why the package.log.json is created. It's a very complicated thing, and it's not very necessary to know. That's why I did not explain it, because initially it might confuse you. Install the required. No, you don't have to. See, if you don't have any dependencies, you don't have to install. Try running it yourself. Okay. Okay. So continuing further, I have basically created a project, which is the get put. Oh, so I have created a project where I can hit the specific URL. Okay. Now, what happens? I can even assign this function to a variable and call this variable over here. Okay. So if I tell you in brief what is happening, uh, I am calling this app.get. Okay, and I can call the function after first. So first parameter is the URL at which I am making the request, and the second second parameter is the function which I want to execute. So I either I can execute this function right here like I did it over here, or I assign this function to a variable, and then I use that variable as a second parameter. Okay, so this is what I have done till this point. Okay, so now, so there are four types of requests as I mentioned earlier: get, get, post, put, and delete. So get request can be accessed by the URL. This request, whenever you're entering the URL, it's the get request. Okay, and what about the other requests? So what we use some other external tools like Postman. Okay, so I'll just show you Postman. So this Postman is a basically it's a tool where we can test our APIs. Okay, so you can download the Postman through this. I'll just share the link with you. Okay, you can download it either on your Chrome, either in your as an application on your operating system, with or as an extension in the VS Code. So if you go on the extensions folder and you can search for Postman here. Okay, and you can install it. Since I've already installed it, so it's saying uninstall it. Okay, and here is the Postman. You need to log in order to create the APIs. Wait, I'll just okay, and then open the VS Code. Okay, so now you can see all your APIs here. Okay, now, so there's a proper Postman course on the Let's Upgrade. You can refer that while working on this with this. Now, whenever you have to test a request, let's click on new HTTP request. I'll just zoom it out a little bit. Yeah. So now I can use this same URL to test over here. So I'll enter this URL here, and since it's a GET request, I'll choose GET. Okay, and I click on send. Wait, I think my server is not working. Yeah, I'll do and then start again. I click on send. See, I'm getting hello world. If I want to try ABC, I'm getting you're on ABC page. Okay. Yeah, Thunderline is also an alternative of Postman, but since Postman is one of the initial applications which solve this purpose, so we use Postman. You can use any other client to instead of Postman, but it's up to you. Okay. Now let's test the some other type of API. Now let's create a post API. Okay, I'll just click on copy this and click on post request. Yeah, we can check any API in this Postman. Okay. Now for the post request, instead of get, I'll click on post. Okay. I'll I'll simply say this is the post request. Yeah, you can test any API, Maps API. You can even test the Sockets API if you want. Postman even have that option. Okay. I'll also add put request. I'll say put, and I'll also say delete. Okay, so I have tested all the four requests over here. Okay, let's try it out. If I click on instead of app get, I'll say post. See, I'm getting this is a post request. Why? Because I have said in case of post, you should send this response. Okay, and let's say instead of put, I'm getting this is the put request, and similarly on delete, I'm getting the this is the delete request. Okay, so this is how you have basically you have created all the four types of requests over here. Okay, any questions till this point? Okay, so continuing further, so we have basically created the request. Now what if I want to send some data in my request? Okay, so I'll say uh let's say I create a variable called user. Okay, and I'll say id is 1 to John, and I'll create another one. No. Okay, so I have this users. Okay, so now I have a use case saying, I'll delete this for now. Okay, I'll create a function now. Const send all users equals to request response, and I'll say on get request, if there's a users, I'll simply say send all users. Okay, I'll clear this send message. So what did I do? I said that, I'll just say this, I have created a variable users, and I'm saying on slash your users, I should be able to send all users, which is this functions. Okay, let's try it out. I'll say get slash users. See, I'm getting all the users data over here, id, name, age of all three. So this is how you can send the all the data to the user. Okay, now let's say I want a specific user data only. I don't want the whole data of users. So obviously, like, let's say now let this just consider this as a server. Okay, so this computer is the server. So initially user said send me all data. So you said users, wait, what, so it sent me all the data. Okay, so when I asked for users, it sent me all the data, which is this. Okay, now what if I just want this specific user? Okay, so how do I do that? So there's one way of achieving this is using the query parameters. Okay, so how does that work? I'll create another instance which is send user, and after that I'll say just send the ID. So I'll write colon ID, and I'll create another function called send uh let's just send specific user equals to request response this, and I'll say const id equals to request. I'll just explain the code. ID. Okay. I'll send, simply click on this, and I'll send the if user is not found. I'll just explain what I just did. Okay, and I'll send it over here. Send specific user. So I said on send all users, I'll send all the users. But if a user is asking for a specific ID, let's say I want the second data now. I'll just say I'll clear user. I'll say 2, and now I'm just getting the user with ID 2. If I click on 3, I'm getting the user with ID 3. If I click on 1, I'm getting user with ID 1. And but if I click on something which does not exist, I'll simply get user not found. Okay. So how does that work? What did I do? So first I created the get request. I created a get request for this. Then in second part, what did I do? I said, okay, so this part is still the same, but after that I had mentioned a colon ID. So what did this colon ID do? What this colon ID does is basically I am creating a parameter over here. Okay, and this parameter, with this parameter, if I'm not getting any parameter, it can return the undefined. Okay, if I console log, or I'll do one thing, dot log id. Okay, so so if you can see over here, okay, if I send the 3, I can see 3 over here. Okay, since I requested for third ID. If I click on 4, even though fourth ID does not exist, but the param ID was mentioned as 4. And if I did not send anything, I can like if I don't send anything, I'll get a undefined. Oh, it did not work only because ID was not there. If I just click on this, it won't send. Okay, so basically I can fetch the parameters from here. Okay, if I show you one more thing, I can say request dot params. Okay, now if I send 3, see I have console log request dot params. In request dot params, I'm getting this ID 3. Okay, now if I say add another thing, let's say name. Okay, and after that 3, I'll send the name, let's say Kanav. Now in request dot params, I'm also getting the name. So basically, if whichever variable I write it after colon over here can be accessed by request dot params. Hence I'm able to get the ID. Then I look for that ID using the find function in the users. If I'm able to find the user, I send that user data back to the user. Otherwise, I send the user not found. Okay. Please tell me the browser extension for JSON data. Let me check. Even I'm not sure. I don't remember. I think it's JSON Viewer Pro. Yeah. I think it's just JSON Viewer Pro, the extension which I'm using over here. Okay. So with this, I'm able to get the specific data. Any questions in this? Okay, so using this, I was able to send a specific user or send the data back to the user. Okay, now let's say I have a use case that I should only able to send the data if user is logged in. Okay, so I'll create another variable called const is logged in equals to true. So what I'm doing, I'm saying that if user is logged in, then only you should be able to send data. Otherwise, you should not. So I can, one way of doing this is through, I'll write is logged in, then send data, else send you're not logged in. Okay, I have to do the same for all the things. I'll again write is logged in, then do, otherwise send response as you are not logged in. Okay, now if I click here, it's working fine. But if I make this false, it says you are not logged in. Okay, now the thing is that's over here there are two APIs right now. Okay, but what if there are more than two APIs? Or maybe let's say there are 200 APIs, which is a very normal thing when we are discussing about the big applications. Okay, then what we'll do, if let's say there's a functionality which needs to be there in all the APIs, do we just copy paste all those things over there? The answer is no. For this case, we use uh, middleware. So what are these middlewares? Middlewares are the function that have the access to request and response. I'll explain. Okay, now remember I told you that you can, the first parameter over here is the URL and the second parameter is the function. Now actually there are more than two parameters. It can have n number of parameters. Like over here, first parameter will always be the URL, but second parameter can be n number of functions. Okay, so uh, okay, I'll explain. So now let's say I want to add a check whether the user is logged in or not. So I'll say check. Yeah, I'm explaining with the real life example. Okay, so I'll create another function called check login. Check login. And so earlier, how we were creating the middleware, we were creating this routes. We said request response, and we were writing our logic here. Okay, now I was lying about one thing. It does not have two parameters, it has three parameters. Third parameter is an optional parameter, which is the next parameter. Okay, so I'll show you this next parameter. It will be used over here. So what is this next parameter? So with this next parameter, I can say, okay, well, I'll show you. If is logged in, I'll say next. Else, I'll simply say you are required to log in. Okay, and I'll clear this login statement from this. Same, I'll do it for his. So what did I do? I just added check login over here. Okay, now let's try to run the users again. I'll just say send users. It's again saying you are not logged in. Why? But if I go on send all users, you can see I haven't added the check, but still it is saying you're not logged in. But if I click on is logged in true, it's working fine. So what just happened? So this is the where the middleware comes. Now let's say I want to make sure I should only able to send data of users if a person is logged in. So what did I do? And this logic is applicable for almost all the APIs, let's say. So what we will do, we will create a middleware of this. So what is this middleware? I'll say, okay, so now again, we have created another function which is check login. Okay, in this function, I have added a check, is logged in, next. Otherwise, send the response as you're not logged in. Okay, so what is this next? So basically, this next function, what it does is, it basically tells the function to jump to next function. Okay, so now right now it is over here, and with this next, it will say go to next function, which is send all users, which is written over here. But if the is logged in file, if this is logged in is false, then it will just say you're not logged in. And since the next function is not triggered, it won't go here. It will just stop at this point. Okay, so this is the use of having the middleware in this. Why is it called middleware? Because it's in the middle of the parameters and the final function. And you can have n number of middlewares over here. Okay, so now let's say if I want to have specific user, I'll say user slash 3. Wait, why is it not? Oh, I'll just remove this. If I say user slash 3, I'm getting the third user. But what if I make this is logged in as false? It's still working. Even though I am not logged in, it's still working. Why is that? Because there's no middleware over here. As soon as I encounter add this middleware, and if I check again, it says you're not logged in. Because as soon as I enter in this URL, it goes to this check login, it checks the login. Since the is logged in is false, it won't go to the next function, and it will just simply send the response as you are not logged in. Hence, it won't go to this function. But if I change it back to login, is login is true, what will happen? It will go on is logged in, it will encounter the next function, and as soon as it encounters the next function, it will go from check login to send specific user, and send specific user, it will run the specific function, and hence I'll get the I did not save, and hence I'll get the data, which is this. So this is the concept of middleware. Any questions? Okay, so even you can have multiple middlewares as well. So let's say now I create another middleware called const is admin equals to true. Okay, now we can use millions, like there's no count of how many middlewares we can use. You can use n number of middlewares, Shakil. Okay, so now let's say I want to also check that a user, sorry, a user can only see all the users if he or she is an admin. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll create another function called cost is admin. Oh, is user admin. Let's call this is user admin, and I'll say request comma response comma next, and I'll say if is admin, go to the next function, otherwise send a response saying you are not an admin. Okay, and since this is only valid for this, so I'll just add it over here is user admin. So I created two middlewares over here. Okay, so first it will check for if the user is admin, if the user is logged in, then it will check for is user admin, then it will send all the users. Okay, let's try it out. So it's only valid for this users. pretty blind. Okay, it's working right now. What if I am logged out? I'm getting you're not logged in. Okay. What is I'm also not an admin? What error will I get? Whether I'm not logged in or whether I'm not logged out, or whether I'm not an admin or whether I'm not logged in. Since the check login is mentioned first, so this will throw the error first. It won't even go to use user admin. Why? Because is logged in is on not is only false. So hence it won't go to user admin. So even if I click refresh here, see it says you're not logged in. Okay. So now I'll just log in myself while marking it true. And if I click on enter, now it says you're not an admin because my is an admin is also false. After logged in, check login, it jumped to the is user admin and it checked whether is admin is true or not. Since it's not true, hence it threw an error saying you're not an admin. Once I mark this true, then it should be able to send all the response. Let's try it out. Now, hence I'm getting the data. Can we have the middleware in post request? Yeah, you can have middleware in all the requests. Okay. Hi, uncle. Yeah, and you can watch it from the beginning. Okay. So this is the concept of middlewares. Okay. Now, mm, we have done the middlewares. Yeah, so cookie is a different topic. Like it's mainly used in the front end. And since we are doing the Node.js, you can refer the React course. I think it's mentioned. It should be mentioned in that course. Okay. Now, if you see, let's say instead of users, I write users this. Okay. And I'm getting a weird error over here. Is there a way to handle these errors? So, what's the difference between response.json and response.send? So it's the similar thing. With response.json, you can only send the JSON. With response.send, you can send JSON, you can send uh, string, anything you want. Okay. So now let's say there is a point where let's say our server crashes. Okay. So in order to handle those points, we use another thing called app.use. So it has many uses. One of the uses we can handle the error. So let's say over here, let's say this URL is not found, right? So how can we handle this? We use app.use. In the app.use, you say request, response, and next. Okay, I'll just show you. And I'll say 404 not found. Okay. Now if I click on this, see, I'm getting 404 not found. So what just happened? I said if above URLs are not available, or if something unexpected URL is found, then you can simply send yeah 404 not found. Okay, so I can handle the request error by this. Basically, I'm catching the if above URLs are not available, then send this response. This is what it means. Okay, and a similar way, let's say if there's any error, you can encounter that using this method again. App.use, you mention error. Okay, and let's say if by chance server crashes, you can simply send response.send 500 internal error found. Okay, so if you see the difference between the above and below statement is there's an error over here. You can even send the error if you want. So there's no way to create an error right now because I'm not using any external APIs. But let's say if the server went down, so I can use this way to handle this error. Okay. Yeah, status code is, you can also send status code by writing response dot status, and backend you can write the status code. So I can write this over here. I can write status as 404. Okay, you can so what does this status code mean? So you can see this over here. I'll just share the URL. So these are basically, these status code help us understand if I'm getting what response I'm getting from the server. Okay, so hence we use the status code, and every status code has a specific meaning. I'll just share this with you. So if you see, if I'm getting a status code between 100 to 200, 199, so it's information. If it's a successful API call, it will be in the 200 range. If it's a redirection, it will be 300 range. If it's a client error, it's a 400 range. And if the server went down, it's a 500 range. Okay, I'll just share this URL with you. Okay, necessary to add the path app.use. No, it's not necessary. It's up to you. But it's a good practice if you mention it, because if a user entered to a very weird URL, it you he or she will know that yeah, it's a not found page. If I comment this out, I'll get this weird error. Okay, so hence it's a good practice to use this. Okay. Okay, so this is what the basics of Express.js. Any questions, any doubts in today's class? Okay, Pandu, it's cleared. That's good. I'll share this with you. So, like there are multiple extensions instead of Copilot. Wait, I'll just let you know. Give me a second. I'll share this URL with you. You can refer this as well. Just a second. Yeah, my name is Kanam Bhatia. Okay, so I'll share the URL with you, and I think let's see you in the next class then. Bye everyone. Good evening. Good night.